I am Madison, 24, still living in my childhood bedroom while finishing my education degree. It was comfortable until my dad Keith dropped a bombshell at Sunday dinner. My older brother Ryan, the supposedly successful and independent golden child, had lost his job and was moving back home temporarily. I had no idea this announcement would lead to me being relegated to the laundry room while my brother took over my sanctuary of 20 years. What happened next changed our family forever. If you are watching this, I would love to know where you are viewing from. Hit that like and subscribe button and get ready for a wild family drama that might just remind you of someone in your own life. Growing up in our 3-bedroom house in a middle-class suburban neighborhood, I had always felt secure in my place within our family. My room, with its lavender walls and window seat overlooking the backyard maple tree, had been my sanctuary through childhood, adolescence, and now early adulthood. I had covered the walls with photographs, concert tickets, and artwork that documented my life journey. The ceiling still had those glow-in-the-dark stars my mom Diane had helped me put up when I was 9, 3 years before cancer took her from us. After Mom died, Dad did his best to keep our family together. Keith Parker, 52, construction management supervisor, was not the most emotionally available father, but he showed his love through steady presence and providing for us. He worked long hours to ensure we never struggled financially, though the emotional gap left by Mom was something none of us quite figured out how to fill. My relationship with Dad was generally good, if somewhat distant. He never quite understood my passion for teaching or my interest in art and literature, but he supported my education and seemed proud when I made the dean's list at the local university. I was on track to graduate with my teaching degree in just a few months, working part-time at Riverside Cafe to help with expenses and save for my eventual move. Ryan, my brother, was a different story altogether. For years older at 28, he had always been Dad's obvious favorite. They shared interests in sports, cars, and business. Ryan had been the high school football star, the business major, the one who moved to Chicago after college and landed a sales executive position at a tech company. Every conversation with Dad inevitably included some reference to Ryan's latest accomplishment or promotion. "Your brother just closed another big deal," Dad would announce over dinner, beaming with pride. "Ryan's company is sending him to the conference in San Francisco. Ryan is looking at buying a condo in downtown Chicago." Meanwhile, my steady academic progress and work ethic received polite acknowledgement at best. I had learned to live with it, focusing on my goals rather than seeking the validation I rarely received. When Ryan called that Tuesday evening, I happened to be the one who answered the phone. His voice lacked the usual confidence. "Hey Maddie, is Dad around? I need to talk to him." I handed the phone to Dad, who was preparing dinner. Within minutes, the entire dynamic of our household was destined to change. "Of course you can come home, son. For as long as you need," Dad said, concern etched on his face. "These things happen. You will bounce back." After hanging up, Dad explained the situation to me. Ryan had lost his job due to company downsizing and subsequently couldn't afford his expensive Chicago apartment. He needed to move back home temporarily while regrouping and job hunting. "He will be here tomorrow," Dad said, already planning to take the day off work to help Ryan move in. "We need to make him feel welcome. He is going through a tough time." I nodded, trying to be supportive despite a nagging feeling of unease. "Of course. I hope he finds something new quickly." When Ryan arrived the next day, I was shocked by the amount of belongings he brought. For someone who had lost his apartment, he seemed to have retained an awful lot of possessions. His sleek BMW was packed to the roof, with a small U-Haul trailer hitched behind. "Just the essentials," Ryan explained with his characteristic charming smile when I raised an eyebrow at the volume of boxes. "The rest is in storage." Dad helped him carry everything into his old bedroom, which was significantly smaller than mine as I had inherited the master bedroom after Mom passed away. Dad had taken the middle-sized room, saying I needed the space more as a growing teenager. It had been one of the few times I felt prioritized in our family dynamic. Little did I know that this arrangement was about to be challenged in ways I could never have anticipated. Within days of Ryan's arrival, subtle changes began overtaking our household. The living room gradually transformed into an extension of his bedroom, with his gaming console connected to the main TV, his laptop permanently stationed on the coffee table, and his gym equipment cluttering the corner that once held Mom's reading chair. Dad seemed oblivious to the territorial expansion, or perhaps he simply didn't mind. In fact, he appeared energized by having his son home again, eagerly preparing Ryan's favorite meals and inquiring about his job prospects with genuine interest. "I made your favorite lasagna," Dad announced one evening, placing the steaming dish on the dining table. "And picked up that craft beer you like." "Thanks, Dad." "You are the best," Ryan replied, helping himself to a generous portion while I silently noted that my favorite meals had never received such special attention. What bothered me most wasn't the special treatment, but Ryan's complete lack of contribution to the household. While I worked part-time, paid a small amount toward utilities, and handled my share of chores, Ryan did nothing. His dishes remained in the sink until Dad or I washed them. His laundry mysteriously got done, thanks to Dad, and he never once offered to grocery shop, cook, or clean. Our first uncomfortable family dinner happened about a week after Ryan moved in. Dad had prepared pot roast, and we sat together at the dining table like we used to years ago. "So, how's the job hunt going?" I asked, trying to sound casual and supportive. Ryan's expression darkened slightly. "It's a tough market right now. These companies don't know talent when they see it." "What exactly happened with your last position?" I pressed gently. "You mentioned downsizing, but weren't you one of their top performers?" Dad shot me a warning glance, but Ryan surprisingly decided to elaborate. "Well, if you must know, there was a misunderstanding about some client accounts I was managing." He pushed food around his plate. "My boss had unreasonable expectations, and when a few accounts underperformed, he decided to make an example out of me." Something in his explanation didn't quite ring true, but Dad was already jumping in with reassurances. "These things happen in corporate America. They don't appreciate loyalty anymore," Dad said firmly. "Ryan will find something better, with a company that values him properly." Later that week, I accidentally discovered a different truth. While using the shared computer in the living room, I noticed Ryan had left his email open. A message from his former coworker revealed he hadn't been laid off at all. He had been fired for negligence after missing important client meetings and mishandling several major accounts. This discovery made me pay closer attention to Ryan's daily activities. He claimed to be job hunting, but from what I observed, he spent most days playing video games, watching sports, or napping. His networking consisted of meeting old high school friends at bars. When I came home from class or work, he was often exactly where I'd left him, controller in hand, empty snack bags surrounding him. "Don't you have any interviews lined up?" I asked one afternoon, unable to hide my frustration at finding him still in pajamas at 3 p.m. "I'm working on my resume," he replied defensively, though the TV screen clearly showed his paused game. "It's a strategic process, Maddie. You wouldn't understand the corporate world." My friend Jessica visited that weekend and immediately noticed the tension in the house. "This is ridiculous," she whispered as we sat in my room, the only space still untouched by Ryan's presence. "He's treating this place like a hotel, and your dad is acting like the concierge." "I know," I sighed. "But what can I do? Dad gets defensive whenever I bring it up." "You need to establish boundaries," Jessica advised. "This was supposed to be temporary, right? Has he even mentioned when he plans to leave?" She had a point. Ryan had been with us for nearly 3 weeks with no signs of departure and no visible progress toward independence. That evening, I decided to start small. Ryan had left his dirty dishes on the coffee table again, so I approached him as he scrolled through his phone. "Hey, could you please clean up your dishes? I need to study in the living room." Ryan looked up with annoyed surprise, as if I'd asked him to donate a kidney. "I'll get to it later. I'm waiting to hear back about a job opportunity." "It will only take a minute," I persisted. "I have a big exam tomorrow." "Jesus, Maddie, can you stop nagging? I'm under enough pressure without you on my case too." Dad walked in just as the conversation escalated. "What's going on?" "Maddie's giving me grief about dishes when I'm trying to focus on my job search," Ryan complained, his voice taking on the injured tone he had perfected since childhood. To my dismay but not surprise, Dad turned to me with disappointment. Madison, your brother is going through a difficult time. A few dishes can wait. Why don't you study in your room? Because he's taken over every common area in the house, I protested, frustration building. I pay rent. I do chores. Meanwhile, he contributes nothing. That's enough, Dad said firmly. Ryan will help when he can. Right now, he needs support, not criticism. I retreated to my room, feeling invalidated and increasingly resentful. That night, I could hear Ryan and Dad laughing downstairs while watching a baseball game, bonding like old times while I studied alone. The bathroom situation became another point of contention. With 3 adults sharing one bathroom, a schedule should have been simple courtesy. Yet Ryan consistently took 40-minute showers exactly when I needed to get ready for class, leaving me rushing to avoid being late. When I politely suggested we coordinate timing, Ryan dismissed it as too complicated, and Dad suggested I should simply wake up earlier. The pattern was clear. Ryan's comfort and convenience trumped my basic needs. And somehow, I was the unreasonable one for noticing. Exactly 1 month after Ryan moved in, our family dynamic took a dramatic turn for the worse. We were having spaghetti for dinner, one of the few meals I had time to prepare between classes and work shifts. Ryan seemed unusually quiet, pushing pasta around his plate while occasionally glancing at Dad. "Something on your mind, son?" Dad finally asked, noticing Ryan's unusual demeanor. Ryan set down his fork with a sigh that seemed rehearsed. "Actually, yes. I've been wanting to talk to both of you about something." The way he said "both of you" made it clear this involved me, and my stomach immediately tightened with apprehension. "I've been trying to make the best of my room," Ryan began, "but it's really challenging to conduct a proper job search from such a small space. The desk barely fits my computer setup, and there's no room for my filing system or second monitor." I struggled not to roll my eyes. The job search, I had yet to see evidence of, apparently required an elaborate office setup. "The thing is," Ryan continued, making eye contact with Dad rather than me, "I noticed that Madison has the largest bedroom in the house, with plenty of space for a proper home office. Since I'm focusing on getting back on my feet professionally, it would make more sense for me to have that space right now." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited for Dad to shut down this ridiculous suggestion. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "You know, Ryan might have a point, Madison," Dad said slowly. "Your brother does need a proper space to conduct his job search. It could help him get back on his feet faster." I nearly choked on my spaghetti. "You cannot be serious right now." "I'm not saying forever," Ryan quickly added, as if that made it better. "Just until I land a new position. Once I'm back in my own place, you can have your room back." "That room has been mine for 12 years, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Everything I own is set up there. I have finals coming up. I'm not disrupting my entire life because you need a home office for a job search that consists of playing Xbox all day." Ryan's face darkened. "That's completely unfair. You have no idea how hard I'm working to find the right opportunity." "Really? Because all I've seen is you gaming and sleeping until noon." "Madison," Dad interrupted, "your brother is going through a difficult transition. We should be supporting him, not attacking him. Supporting him doesn't mean I should be displaced from my own room." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. He chose an apartment he couldn't afford. He lost his job. Those were his choices. Why am I being punished for them? "No one is punishing you," Dad said in that maddeningly patient tone he reserved for when he thought I was being unreasonable. "We're talking about a temporary family adjustment to help your brother through a crisis." "A crisis of his own making," I muttered. "That's enough." Dad's voice hardened. "Family supports each other. Your mother would have expected better from you." The mention of Mom hit like a slap. Dad rarely invoked her memory, and doing so now to manipulate me felt especially cruel. "Don't you dare use Mom to guilt me," I said, pushing back from the table. "She would never have expected me to give up my room for Ryan's convenience." "It's not about convenience," Ryan interjected. "It's about necessity. My future depends on finding the right job, and I need a proper environment to make that happen." The argument escalated, with Ryan playing the victim and Dad growing increasingly frustrated with my selfishness. Eventually, Dad issued an ultimatum I never thought I'd hear. Either you switch rooms with Ryan, or we convert the laundry room into a bedroom for you. Those are the options, Madison. I stared at him in disbelief. The laundry room? You cannot be serious. The laundry room was a converted mudroom off the kitchen, barely 8 by 10 feet, housing our washer, dryer, and water heater. It had one small window that faced the neighbor's brick wall and contained permanent shelving for detergents and cleaning supplies. The idea of it becoming my bedroom was absurd. It's bigger than you think, Dad continued, not meeting my eyes. We could move your bed in there, maybe a small desk. The rest of your things could go in storage temporarily. Ryan remained conspicuously silent, though I could sense his satisfaction. This is insane, I said, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. I pay rent. I'm finishing my degree. I have seniority in this house. And you want to put me in the laundry room so Ryan can have a home office for his imaginary job search. It's only temporary, Dad repeated, as if that made it acceptable. Once Ryan is back on his feet. Which could be months or years at the rate he's going, I interrupted. The argument continued in circles until I finally retreated to my room, the room that apparently would soon no longer be mine, and called the one person who might understand, my Aunt Carolyn, Mom's sister. He said what? Aunt Carolyn exclaimed when I explained the situation. Keith has lost his mind. That room was yours when Diane was alive, and she'd be furious about this. Her validation provided the first moment of relief I'd felt all evening. What should I do? I asked, voice cracking. I don't want to give up my room, but I can't afford to move out before graduation. Aunt Carolyn was quiet for a moment. As much as I hate to say it, you might need to comply temporarily while planning your next move. Fighting this directly could make your living situation unbearable, and you need stability to finish your degree. So I should just let them bully me into the laundry room. No, you should document everything, save your money, and plan your exit strategy. Sometimes retreat is the best path to eventual victory, honey. With bitter resignation, I began the painful process of moving my belongings. Dad helped convert the laundry room, installing a curtain rod to separate my bedroom from the washer and dryer. We moved my twin bed against one wall and a small desk against another. My dresser wouldn't fit, so I was allowed to keep it in the hallway. Most of my possessions went into plastic storage bins in the garage. Ryan watched the process with poorly concealed satisfaction, already measuring my former room for his elaborate office setup. Within days, he had removed all traces of my presence, the paint color I had chosen, the curtains I had sewn with Mom years ago, even the ceiling stars that had watched over me since childhood. As I lay in bed that first night in the laundry room, listening to the hum of the water heater and smelling the lingering scent of fabric softener, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't just about a bedroom. It was about my place in this family, my worth, my right to take up space. And I was no longer willing to be diminished. My first week in the laundry room was a crash course in discomfort and indignity. The twin bed barely fit along one wall, leaving just enough space to shimmy between it and the washing machine to reach my makeshift desk, a plank of wood balanced on 2 plastic storage crates. The single bare bulb overhead cast harsh shadows, making reading difficult and creating a depressing atmosphere that weighed on my mood. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer count on. The water heater made unpredictable clanking sounds throughout the night, and the ancient pipes gurgled and moaned like restless ghosts. Worse, the laundry room's location off the kitchen meant I heard every midnight snack run, early morning coffee preparation, and family conversation. But the true nightmare began whenever someone needed to do laundry. Sorry, Maddie, gotta wash my uniform for tomorrow, Dad would say, barging in without knocking at 9 p.m. as I studied for finals. The washing machine's violent spin cycle would shake my desk, making it impossible to concentrate. The humidity from the dryer would fog up my small window and make my notes damp. Ryan, of course, developed an urgent need to do laundry precisely when I mentioned having important assignments due. Suddenly, the brother who had never washed his own clothes in his life became diligent about laundry, always during my study hours. The laundry room is still a common area, he reminded me smugly when I protested. You chose this over sharing my old room. That was another cruel twist. Dad had reframed the situation as if I had selected the laundry room instead of Ryan's former bedroom, as if this had been a choice rather than an ultimatum. Meanwhile, Ryan had completely transformed my former sanctuary. He had Dad help him repaint the lavender walls a stark gray. My cozy reading nook became home to his expensive gaming chair and dual-monitor setup. The bookshelves that once held my education textbooks and cherished novels now displayed his sports trophies and expensive whiskey collection. The one time I entered without permission to retrieve a textbook I'd forgotten, Ryan acted as if I'd violated sacred ground. "You should knock," he snapped. I could have been on an important interview call. I bit back a retort about his non-existent interviews and retreated, the familiar ache of invisibility settling deeper into my chest. My academic performance began to suffer. The constant noise, lack of proper sleep, and inadequate study space made concentration nearly impossible. My carefully maintained 3.8 GPA was in jeopardy during my final and most important semester. My student teaching evaluations, once glowing, now contained comments about my apparent fatigue and occasional lack of preparedness. Ryan's takeover extended beyond physical space. He dominated dinner conversations with exaggerated stories of job prospects and networking successes, though I never once saw him wearing anything but sweatpants and t-shirts, hardly interview attire. Dad listened with rapt attention, offering advice and encouragement, while my updates about student teaching were met with distracted nods. On the rare occasions Ryan wasn't home, Dad would reminisce about how the house felt alive again with his son's return, apparently forgetting I had never left. "It's good having a man around the house again," he said one evening, not realizing how the comment diminished my constant presence over the years. After 3 weeks in the laundry room, my friends Jessica and Megan insisted on seeing my new living situation. Their reactions confirmed I wasn't overreacting. "This is actual abuse," Jessica declared, looking around the cramped space with horror. "You can't even stand up straight under that slanted ceiling part. And the humidity in here can't be healthy," Megan added, running a finger along the perpetually damp windowsill. "Your books are getting moldy, Madison. You need to move out," Jessica said firmly. "Like yesterday." "With what money?" I sighed. "I've been saving, but between tuition and helping with bills here, I don't have first and last month's rent plus security deposit." "Stay with me," Megan offered immediately. "My couch is uncomfortable, but it's better than this glorified closet." I was touched but reluctant. "I appreciate that, but I only have 3 months until graduation. If I can just hang on." "And then what?" Jessica interrupted. "You think Ryan is magically going to find a job and move out the day after your graduation? He's too comfortable. Your dad is waiting on him hand and foot. This could go on indefinitely." Deep down, I knew she was right. The temporary arrangement was showing no signs of ending, and Ryan had settled in like he was planning to stay forever. The breaking point came unexpectedly on a Saturday afternoon. I had been at the library all morning, finding the peace to work on my final teaching portfolio that my bedroom couldn't provide. When I returned home, I found Ryan and 3 of his high school buddies sprawled across the living room, watching a game and drinking beer. "Hey, laundry girl," one of them called out, a nickname Ryan had apparently shared with his friends. The others snickered. Ignoring them, I headed to the kitchen for a glass of water. That's when I noticed something on the coffee table that made my blood run cold. My childhood memory box, filled with cards from Mom, my first teaching award, and irreplaceable photographs, had been pulled from storage and was sitting open on the table. The guys were using my precious keepsakes as coasters for their beer bottles. "What is this doing out here?" I demanded, rushing to rescue a water-ringed photograph of Mom and me at the beach. Ryan shrugged. "Found it in the garage when I was looking for the ping-pong paddles. Thought it was just old junk." Something inside me snapped. "This is not junk, Ryan. These are my memories of Mom." "How dare you?" "Chill out, Madison. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? You're using Mom's last Mother's Day card as a beer coaster." The argument escalated until Dad came in from the backyard, inevitably taking Ryan's side and suggesting I was overreacting and should keep my personal items properly stored if they were so important. That night, lying on my damp sheets in the laundry room, listening to the continuing party in the living room, I made a decision. This situation wasn't going to improve on its own. If things were going to change, I would need to take matters into my own hands. The next morning, I woke with newfound clarity and determination. If I wanted to reclaim my place in this house, or at the very least, understand why Ryan seemed content to mooch indefinitely, I needed information. The pieces of his story never quite fit together, and my instincts told me there was more to his job loss and sudden return home than he had shared. I started with basic research about the company Ryan had worked for, Comtech Solutions. Their website described them as a mid-sized tech company specializing in custom software solutions for businesses. Ryan had worked in their sales department for nearly 3 years before his sudden termination. The company seemed stable and growing, making the downsizing explanation increasingly suspicious. On a hunch, I searched LinkedIn for current and former Comtech employees. After browsing several profiles, I found Alex Ramirez, who had worked in the same department as Ryan. I sent him a carefully worded message. "Hi Alex, I'm Ryan Parker's sister. I'm trying to help my brother through his career transition after leaving Comtech, and I'm hoping to better understand the circumstances to provide appropriate support. Would you be willing to chat briefly?" To my surprise, Alex responded within hours, agreeing to meet for coffee the following day. I arranged to meet him during my lunch break at a cafe near my university campus. Alex turned out to be a professional-looking man in his early 30s, with a cautious demeanor. After we exchanged pleasantries, he got straight to the point. "Look, I agreed to meet because your message seemed genuine, but I need to be clear, Ryan probably wouldn't want me talking to you about this." "I understand," I said. "But I'm worried about him. He's been living with us for over a month, claiming to job hunt, but something doesn't add up. Dad and I are supporting him completely, and I just want to understand what we're dealing with." Alex sighed, stirring his coffee. Ryan wasn't laid off. He was fired for cause. Though I had suspected as much, having it confirmed sent a chill through me. What happened? It started with client complaints about missed meetings and unanswered emails. Management put him on a performance improvement plan, but things got worse. Alex paused, lowering his voice. Then accounting noticed discrepancies in some client accounts Ryan managed. Money that should have been applied to client services was being diverted elsewhere. When confronted, Ryan claimed it was accounting errors. "Was it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "No." After investigating, they found he had been falsifying expense reports and skimming from client retainers. We're talking about nearly $30,000 over 6 months. I felt physically ill. Did they press charges? They were going to. Ryan has a gambling problem, sports betting mostly. When management discovered this, they offered him a deal: resign immediately, pay back the money, and they wouldn't pursue criminal charges. It was more about avoiding company scandal than protecting Ryan, but it kept him out of jail. Did he pay it back? Some of it. He liquidated his 401k, which covered about half. He's on a payment plan for the rest, which is probably why he's living with you. Between the debt to Comtech and what I heard were substantial gambling debts, he's in a financial hole. The conversation with Alex dramatically shifted my understanding of our situation. Ryan wasn't just between jobs, he was in serious financial trouble of his own making and potentially hiding from larger issues. Back at home, I began paying closer attention to Ryan's behavior and belongings. When he was out with friends, I carefully examined his room, my former room, looking for evidence that would either confirm or disprove Alex's claims. Behind his expensive clothes in the closet, I found a shoebox containing pawn shop receipts for items I recognized. Mom's silver serving set that had supposedly been lost during a move, an expensive watch Dad had given Ryan for college graduation, and even some electronics that had mysteriously disappeared from our home. His laptop, often left open when he stepped away, revealed browser histories filled with online betting sites, casino games, and sports gambling forums. When I checked his desk drawers, I found overdue notices from credit card companies showing balances in the thousands of dollars. Most disturbing was my discovery that Ryan had been intercepting mail. Under his bed was a stack of envelopes addressed to me, including my scholarship renewal notification for my final semester, a document I had been waiting for anxiously. There was also mail addressed to Dad, including bank statements that might have revealed Ryan's financial requests. Confronting Ryan about the hidden mail seemed like the most straightforward issue to address first. I waited until Dad was at work, then approached Ryan in the living room where he was, predictably, playing video games. "I found these under your bed," I said, holding up the stack of mail. "Care to explain why you're hiding my scholarship notifications?" Ryan's expression shifted from surprise to anger to calculation in seconds. "I was going to give those to you. They just got mixed in with my stuff." "All of them? Including Dad's bank statements?" "For weeks." "Why were you snooping in my room?" he countered, deflecting. "Because I knew you were hiding something. Ryan, I know about Comtech. I know you weren't laid off. I know about the gambling." His face drained of color. "Who told you that? Does it matter? I know you stole from your company. I know you have gambling debts. And now you're stealing our mail and pawning family heirlooms." Ryan's demeanor changed completely, his charm vanishing as panic set in. "You have no idea what you're talking about. And if you tell Dad any of this, I'll make sure he knows what an ungrateful daughter he has." Who do you think he'll believe? His son who's having a temporary setback, or his daughter who's been complaining since I got here? You call theft and fraud a temporary setback? Ryan, you need help, not enabling. "What I need is for you to mind your own business," he hissed. "I'm working on fixing things my way. If you interfere, I'll make sure Dad throws you out completely." "How will you finish your precious degree then?" His threat wasn't idle. Dad had already chosen Ryan's comfort over my basic need for appropriate living space. I had no doubt Ryan could manipulate him into more drastic measures. "This isn't over," I said, retreating with the mail that rightfully belonged to me and Dad. "You can't keep this up forever." In my laundry room that evening, I developed a plan. Direct confrontation wouldn't work. Ryan was too skilled at manipulation, and Dad was too blinded by favoritism. I needed irrefutable evidence presented in a way Dad couldn't dismiss. Over the next week, I meticulously documented everything: photographs of the pawn receipts, screenshots of the gambling sites on Ryan's computer, copies of the hidden mail, and a detailed timeline of Ryan's daily activities showing the complete absence of job hunting efforts. I recorded conversations where Ryan contradicted his previous statements about interviews and job prospects. I even photographed his dresser drawer filled with casino chip vouchers and betting slips. I created a comprehensive file that showed not just Ryan's past mistakes, but his ongoing deception. This wasn't about punishing Ryan or winning Dad's approval. It was about stopping the destructive patterns that were harming our entire family. As I completed my documentation, a final piece of evidence fell into my lap. While doing laundry in my room, I accidentally knocked Ryan's jacket off the hook. His wallet fell out, and with it, a receipt from a local pawn shop dated just 2 days earlier. The item pawned was listed as gold woman's wedding band with diamond. My mother's wedding ring, the one Dad had told me was in a safe deposit box for when I someday got married. Now I had everything I needed for the confrontation that could no longer be postponed. I chose a Sunday evening for the confrontation, knowing Dad would be relaxed after his usual weekend routine of yard work and watching golf. I prepared his favorite meal, pot roast with roasted potatoes and carrots, and set the dining room table properly, something we rarely did anymore. "What's the occasion?" Dad asked, eyebrow raised as he noticed the table settings. "Just thought it would be nice to have a proper family dinner," I said casually. "We need to talk about some things." Ryan arrived late, as usual, looking annoyed at being asked to participate in a family meal when there was a basketball game on TV. He slouched into his chair, immediately reaching for the wine bottle I had deliberately placed on the table. We ate in relative silence for the first few minutes before I carefully placed a manila folder beside my plate. "I have something important to discuss with both of you," I began, my heart hammering but my voice steady. "Can it wait until after dinner?" Dad sighed. "I've had a long day." "No, it can't." I took a deep breath. Ryan hasn't been honest with us about why he's here or what happened in Chicago. Ryan's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" "Madison," Dad warned, "if this is another complaint about the room situation, this isn't about my room. This is about the fact that Ryan was fired for stealing almost $30,000 from his company, has a gambling addiction, and has been pawning family belongings to pay his debts. The stunned silence that followed gave me the opening to continue. I opened the folder and methodically presented my evidence: the confirmation from Alex, the pawn receipts, the credit card statements, the gambling website history. "This is ridiculous," Ryan sputtered, attempting to grab the papers. "She's making this up because she's jealous." "Am I making this up?" I pulled out the receipt for Mom's wedding ring and placed it in front of Dad. "Is this fake, Ryan? Did you or did you not pawn Mom's wedding ring 2 days ago?" Dad picked up the receipt, his hand trembling slightly. "This can't be right." Ryan wouldn't. "Check your safe deposit box, Dad," I said quietly. "The ring isn't there." Ryan's face had gone from defensive to desperately calculating. "Okay, so I borrowed it. I was going to get it back before anyone noticed. I had an opportunity, a sure thing, that would have solved everything." "A sure thing," I echoed. "You mean another bet? Another gambling opportunity that would magically fix the thousands you already owe?" "You don't understand how this works," Ryan snapped. "You have to spend money to make money. One good bet could clear all my debts." "Ryan," Dad's voice was barely above a whisper, "tell me you didn't take your mother's ring." The confirmation was written all over Ryan's face. "It's just temporary. I'll get it back." "With what money?" I pressed. "You haven't looked for a job once since you've been here. I've documented your daily activities for 2 weeks. You sleep until noon, play video games, meet your buddies for drinks, then come home and lie about fictional interviews." "That's not." "Yes, it is," I cut him off, pulling out my detailed log. "Tuesday, woke up at 11:30, played Call of Duty until 3, told Dad you had a phone interview with Lynch Financial that doesn't exist. Wednesday, claimed to have a networking lunch but actually met friends at the sports bar to watch the game and place bets." Should I continue? Dad's face had gone from shocked to ashen. "Ryan, is this true?" For a moment, it seemed Ryan might continue denying everything. Then, perhaps realizing the futility of further lies, his demeanor changed completely. "Fine," he exploded. "Yes, I have gambling debts. Yes, I got fired. But what was I supposed to do? Live on the street? I needed help, and family is supposed to help each other." "Help is not the same as enabling," I said firmly. "We would have helped you if you'd been honest, if you were actually trying to get better, not continuing to gamble and lie while living off Dad." "You don't understand addiction," Ryan said, a calculated note of vulnerability entering his voice as he turned to Dad. "I need support, not judgment. Madison is attacking me when I'm at my lowest point." It was his classic move, turning himself into the victim, but this time, Dad wasn't buying it. "Did you steal from your company?" Dad asked quietly. Ryan hesitated. "It wasn't stealing exactly. I borrowed." "Did you take money that wasn't yours?" Dad pressed. "Yes, but I was going to pay it back when your bet's paid off." Dad finished, his voice hardening. "And now you've taken your mother's ring. The ring I put on her finger 29 years ago. The ring she wanted Madison to have someday." The confrontation escalated as Ryan's defenses crumbled. His admissions came in angry bursts. Yes, he had substantial gambling debts. Yes, he had been fired rather than laid off. No, he hadn't been looking for work because his reputation in the industry was ruined. "I need help, not this interrogation." Ryan finally shouted, tears of frustration in his eyes. "I'm your son. And she's my daughter," Dad responded, gesturing to me, "whom I've been treating terribly based on your lies." The argument reached its climax when Dad issued a new ultimatum, one I never expected to hear. "You have 2 choices, Ryan. Either you get professional help for your gambling addiction, find a job, any job, and start making restitution for what you've taken, or you find somewhere else to live." Ryan stared at Dad in disbelief. "You'd throw your own son out on the street." "I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you a chance to get your life together, with support but with boundaries. And the first step is getting Mom's ring back. Tomorrow." Ryan stormed out that night, saying he would stay with a friend while he considered his options. Dad and I were left sitting at the dining table among the scattered evidence of his deception. "Madison," Dad began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "I owe you an apology." It was what I had waited weeks to hear, but his next words fell far short of what I needed. I should have asked more questions about Ryan's situation. I shouldn't have taken everything he said at face value. That's it? I asked, incredulous. What about how you treated me? Forcing me into the laundry room? Dismissing my concerns? Always taking his side. Dad shifted uncomfortably. I was trying to help Ryan through a difficult time. At my expense. You prioritized his comfort over my basic needs. You moved me to a laundry room, Dad. A laundry room. It wasn't ideal, but it was degrading, I interrupted. And it showed me exactly where I stand in this family. Dad looked genuinely confused. What do you mean? I mean that for my entire life, Ryan has come first. His achievements were celebrated while mine were acknowledged. His needs were priorities while mine were afterthoughts. And when it came down to it, you were willing to put me in a laundry room rather than inconvenience your precious son who was lying to both of us. The hurt I had suppressed for years poured out, and for once, Dad didn't interrupt or dismiss my feelings. He listened, his expression growing more troubled with each example I provided of the lifelong pattern of favoritism. I didn't realize, he said finally. I never meant to make you feel less important. But you did. And a half-hearted apology doesn't fix that. I stood up, gathering my documentation. I'm moving back to my room tomorrow. Not because you're giving it back, but because it should never have been taken from me in the first place. As I turned to leave, Dad called after me. Madison, please. I want to make this right. I paused in the doorway. Then you have a lot of work to do. And it starts with treating me with the same respect you've always given Ryan without him having to earn it. That night, for what I knew would be my last time, I lay in the laundry room bed listening to the rhythmic thump of the water heater, contemplating how thoroughly the dynamics in our household had shifted in a single evening. I had stood my ground, exposed the truth, and for perhaps the first time, made my father really see me, as a person deserving of respect and consideration. But I also knew that one confrontation, however cathartic, couldn't heal years of ingrained patterns. Dad's half-hearted apology revealed how deeply normalized his favoritism had become. He was sorry for being deceived by Ryan, but not fully comprehending how his actions had hurt me. Real change would require more than one difficult conversation. As for Ryan, I felt a complicated mix of vindication and concern. His addiction was real, even if his manipulative behavior was inexcusable. Part of me hoped he would accept Dad's offer of support with accountability, while another part recognized that the path to recovery would be long and uncertain. What I knew with absolute clarity was that regardless of Ryan's choices or Dad's awakening, I needed to prioritize my own well-being going forward. The laundry room episode had taught me a painful but necessary lesson about self-advocacy and the dangers of silent acquiescence. Never again would I allow myself to be relegated to the margins of my own life. The following morning, I woke early and moved my belongings back to my bedroom. Ryan had left it in disarray, gaming equipment tangled in cords, empty energy drink cans on the desk, the walls now a stark gray instead of my beloved lavender. But it was still my space, and reclaiming it felt like the first step in reclaiming my voice in our family. Dad watched silently from the hallway as I carried my clothes and books from the laundry room, neither helping nor hindering. When I finished, he awkwardly suggested we could repaint the walls, whatever color you like, over the weekend. That would be nice, I acknowledged, my tone making it clear that a fresh coat of paint wouldn't erase the deeper issues between us. Ryan returned briefly that afternoon to collect some belongings, avoiding eye contact with both of us. He muttered something about staying with his friend Zach until things cooled down, and left with a duffel bag of clothes. The pawn receipt for Mom's ring was on the kitchen counter, but no ring accompanied it. He says he'll get it back next week when his friend pays him back some money, Dad explained, his expression making it clear he wasn't holding his breath. For the next few days, our house settled into an uneasy quiet. Dad made small, almost timid attempts at connection, asking about my classes, offering to help with dinner, suggesting we watch a movie together. I remained civil but distant, processing my own complicated emotions while considering my next steps. A meeting with my academic advisor, Dr. Martinez, proved to be the catalyst for clarity. When I explained the tumultuous home situation that had affected my recent academic performance, she was immediately supportive. "Madison, you're one of our most promising education students," she said firmly. "Your teaching evaluations from last semester were exceptional. Don't let this temporary setback derail your future." We discussed options for the remaining semester, including emergency scholarship opportunities for students in difficult circumstances. Dr. Martinez also mentioned university-affiliated apartments that sometimes had mid-year openings. "You need stability to finish your degree," she emphasized. "And it sounds like your current living situation isn't providing that." That afternoon, I researched housing options near campus with renewed determination. The university apartments were full, but I found several listings for rooms in shared houses and small apartments within my potential budget if I increased my work hours and eliminated all unnecessary expenses. I picked up extra shifts at Riverside Cafe, working mornings before class and weekends whenever possible. The manager, impressed by my reliability, offered me a shift supervisor position with a modest pay increase. Every dollar went into a new bank account I opened at a different bank than the one Dad and I had previously shared. Selling belongings I no longer needed generated additional funds: clothes I had outgrown, textbooks from completed courses, the television Ryan had given me 3 Christmases ago that I rarely used. Each sale represented not just money toward my goal, but a lightening of the physical and emotional load I had been carrying. 2 weeks into my planning, Aunt Carolyn called to check on me. When I shared my moving plans and financial calculations, she immediately offered to help. "I can co-sign a lease for you," she said without hesitation. "And I'd like to give you some money toward your security deposit." "Aunt Carolyn, you don't have to." "Madison, your mother would have wanted this. She would be so proud of how you're handling yourself and so disappointed in how your father and Ryan have treated you. Let me help, please." With Aunt Carolyn's support, my options expanded. I found a 1-bedroom apartment in a modest complex about a mile from campus. The rent was stretching my budget, but the property manager mentioned they needed a part-time office assistant on weekends, offering a rent reduction in exchange for working the front desk 16 hours a month, a deal that made the numbers work. As my plans solidified, I realized I was about to make the boldest move of my life, not just changing my address, but fundamentally altering my relationship with my father and redefining my sense of home and family. I waited until Dad and I were both home on a quiet Thursday evening to share my decision. We were in the kitchen, me washing dishes from dinner, him reading the newspaper at the table, when I took a deep breath and turned to face him. "Dad, I found an apartment near campus. I'm moving out next weekend." His head snapped up, newspaper forgotten. "Moving out? But things have been better, haven't they? Ryan's gone, you have your room back." "This isn't about the room anymore," I said, drying my hands on a dish towel. "This is about recognizing that I need to create boundaries and independence." "Madison, if this is still about what happened, I've apologized." "I'm trying to do better." "I know you are," I acknowledged. "And I appreciate that. But what happened with Ryan just highlighted patterns that have existed in our family for years. I need space to figure out who I am outside of those patterns." Dad's expression shifted from confusion to something approaching panic. "But you're still in school. How can you afford this?" "I've been working extra shifts and saving. Aunt Carolyn is helping with the security deposit and co-signing the lease. I've thought this through carefully." "So you've been planning this behind my back? Talking to your aunt instead of me?" I set down the dish towel and met his gaze steadily. I needed to make this decision without influence or guilt. "And, honestly, Dad, would you have supported it if I discussed it with you from the beginning?" His silence was answer enough. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I continued more gently. "I'm doing this because I need to establish my independence and self-worth. The way things unfolded with Ryan showed me how easily my needs can be sacrificed in this family, and I can't go back to accepting that as normal." Dad's initial reaction cycled through predictable stages: disbelief, attempts at dissuasion, subtle guilt tactics, and finally, resigned acceptance. As the reality sank in, he made one last appeal. "What if I make more changes? We could renovate your room, set clearer boundaries if Ryan returns." "I know I made mistakes, Madison, but we're still family." "Yes, we are," I agreed. And that won't change because I have my own address. But I need this, Dad. I need to know I can stand on my own. The conversation was difficult but necessary, laying bare years of unspoken dynamics between us. For perhaps the first time, Dad truly listened as I articulated how his favoritism had shaped my self-perception and the constant effort required to earn recognition he freely gave Ryan. "I never realized how different things were for you," he said finally, looking genuinely troubled. "I thought I was being fair. That's why I need space," I explained. "These patterns are so ingrained that neither of us fully sees them. Some distance might be healthier for both of us." The physical process of moving was straightforward, but emotionally complex. My friends Jessica and Megan arrived Saturday morning to help load the few pieces of furniture I was taking: my desk, a bookshelf, a comfortable reading chair that had been Mom's, into Megan's brother's pickup truck. The rest of my belongings fit into 12 plastic storage bins and a handful of cardboard boxes. Dad hovered awkwardly, offering help but mostly watching with a lost expression as my childhood bedroom was systematically emptied. When the last box was loaded, we stood facing each other in the hallway, neither quite knowing how to mark this moment. "I guess this is it," he said, hands shoved into his pockets. "It's not goodbye, Dad. It's just a new chapter." He nodded, then surprised me by pulling me into a tight hug. "I'm sorry I didn't see you," he whispered. "I mean really see you. How strong and capable you are. Your mother always did." I returned the hug, my throat tight with unexpected emotion. "I know." As I drove away from the only home I had ever known, following Megan's brother's truck toward my new apartment, I felt a complex mixture of terror and exhilaration. For 24 years, my identity had been largely defined by my place in our family unit: the responsible daughter, the less favored child, the one who accommodated others' needs. Now I was stepping into uncharted territory, with all the freedom and responsibility that entailed. My new apartment was small but bright, with white walls I could paint any color I chose, large windows that flooded the space with natural light, and most importantly, no humming water heater or family drama disrupting my sleep. As Jessica, Megan, and I arranged my sparse furniture and unpacked essential items, the space gradually transformed from an anonymous rental into something that felt like mine. To Madison's independence, Jessica toasted that evening, raising a plastic cup of cheap sparkling wine. "May your laundry room days be forever behind you." I laughed and clinked my cup against hers, then against Megan's. To new beginnings. It wouldn't be easy, financially, academically, or emotionally. But standing in my tiny kitchen, surrounded by friends who had supported me through the worst of times, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Not just for survival, but for thriving on my own terms. The bold move wasn't just about changing my address. It was about reclaiming my power, establishing boundaries, and building a life where I would never again be relegated to the laundry room of someone else's priorities. The first few weeks in my apartment brought a mixture of challenges and discoveries. Simple tasks like grocery shopping on a tight budget, managing utility bills, and establishing routines without family structures required conscious effort. Yet each small victory, successfully unclogging my kitchen sink without calling Dad, negotiating with the internet provider for a better rate, finding the perfect spot for Mom's reading chair by the window, felt like a step toward genuine independence. My new roommate situation unfolded unexpectedly. 2 weeks after moving in, the property manager mentioned another student named Andrea who needed affordable housing immediately. A nursing student in her final year, Andrea had lost her previous living arrangement when her roommate's boyfriend moved in without warning. We met for coffee, discovered surprisingly compatible living styles, and agreed to share the one-bedroom apartment, she in the bedroom, me on a futon in the living room, splitting the rent and making the arrangement financially comfortable for both of us. Andrea became not just a roommate, but a friend and ally in navigating adult independence. Her practical nature and unwavering focus on her nursing studies inspired me to maintain my own academic discipline, despite the upheaval in my personal life. Meanwhile, developments with Ryan unfolded in sporadic updates from Dad. After a week of crashing with friends, Ryan had apparently hit a personal bottom when those same friends confronted him about stealing cash from their wallets. With nowhere else to go and Dad's firm boundaries still in place, Ryan reluctantly agreed to attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings and meet with an addiction counselor. "He's staying in the basement at Aunt Carolyn's," Dad explained during one of our weekly phone calls. "She's giving him structure, rent, chores, curfew. Almost like parenting him all over again." "Is he actually following through with treatment?" I asked, skeptical based on past patterns. "So far." The wake-up call about Mom's ring really shook him. Carolyn drives him to GA meetings 3 times a week and holds him accountable. No enabling. Mom's ring had been recovered, though not without cost. Ryan had to borrow money from Dad to redeem it from the pawn shop, with a written agreement to repay the loan through part-time work at a local hardware store, the only place willing to hire him with his employment history. Dad's attempts at reconciliation with me were careful and consistent. He never pressured me to return home, but regularly invited me for dinner, asked thoughtful questions about my studies, and even attended my final student teaching presentation, something he had never made time for previously. Our first dinner together in my new apartment marked a significant shift in our relationship. Dad arrived with a housewarming gift, a set of framed family photos, including several of Mom that he had discovered while cleaning out his closet. "I thought you might want these," he said, handling them over awkwardly. "I found them in a box I hadn't opened since she passed." The photos showed Mom in various stages of life as a young woman, on her wedding day, holding infant me with a radiant smile. The most precious was one I had never seen, Mom sitting on our back porch swing reading to me as a toddler, both of us absorbed in the story. "I don't remember this," I said softly, tracing the edge of the frame. "You wouldn't. You were barely 2. But this is what I remember most about you and her, these quiet moments together with books. You were reading by yourself before kindergarten because of those sessions." The simple observation revealed a side of my childhood Dad had never mentioned before. A recognition of the special connection I had shared with Mom and the early indications of my path toward teaching. As we ate the simple pasta dinner I had prepared, Dad surprised me further by offering a more genuine apology than any he had attempted previously. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you moved out," he began, setting down his fork. "About how I've treated you and Ryan differently all these years. I didn't see it then, but it's painfully obvious now." "What do you see?" I asked, curious about his perspective. "That I expected more from you and gave you less credit. That I made excuses for Ryan's mistakes while holding you to impossible standards. That I took your stability and responsibility for granted while rewarding Ryan for the smallest efforts." He paused, visibly uncomfortable but determined to continue. "When your mother died, I was lost. Ryan was so much like me, I understood his needs, his thinking. You were more like your mother, thoughtful, sensitive, self-sufficient even as a child. I convinced myself you needed me less, but the truth is, I just didn't know how to connect with you the way she did." This acknowledgement, simple but profound, began the slow healing between us. It didn't erase the past hurts or immediately create the father-daughter relationship I had always wanted, but it opened a door to something new, a relationship between 2 adults with mutual respect rather than the unbalanced dynamic of our past. Ryan's journey toward recovery proceeded in fits and starts. There were relapses, angry phone calls blaming everyone but himself, and periods of silent withdrawal. But there were also small signs of progress: 30 days clean from gambling, steady attendance at a minimum wage job, tentative steps toward financial responsibility. During a rare family dinner at Aunt Carolyn's house, Ryan offered his own version of amends. "I know I can't fix what I did," he said, avoiding direct eye contact. "The way I manipulated Dad, how I treated you, Madison. I'm working on understanding why I did those things. The counselor says it's part of the addiction, but that's not an excuse." "No, it's not," I agreed, neither rejecting nor immediately accepting his tentative apology. "I'm trying," he added simply. "That's all I can say right now." It wasn't a Hollywood reconciliation moment, but it was honest, perhaps the most honest Ryan had been with me in years. The road to rebuilding trust would be long, and I maintained careful boundaries around our interactions, but I no longer carried the burning resentment that had once consumed me. My academic performance recovered once I had stability and proper study space. My final semester grades were strong, and my student teaching evaluations earned me a glowing recommendation from my supervising teacher. As graduation approached, I received 2 job offers from local elementary schools, a remarkable achievement in a competitive market. The day I signed my first teaching contract for a 3rd-grade position at Oak Ridge Elementary was a milestone that felt appropriate to celebrate. I invited Dad, Aunt Carolyn, and my close friends to my apartment for a small dinner party, the first I had ever hosted in my own space. As I looked around at the gathering, Dad chatting comfortably with Jessica about her photography business, Andrea describing her nursing residency plans to Aunt Carolyn, Megan arranging a fruit platter she had brought, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment that went beyond the teaching position. In the 4 months since leaving home, I had built something I never had before, a life entirely of my own design. Later that evening, as the guests prepared to leave, Dad lingered behind, helping me load the dishwasher. "I'm proud of you, Madison," he said, handing me a rinsed plate. "Not just for the teaching job, though that's remarkable. I'm proud of how you've handled everything. Standing up for yourself, creating boundaries, building this new life. It takes courage to do what you've done." "Thank you," I replied, accepting both the plate and the compliment. "That means a lot. Your mother would have been proud too," he added softly. "She always said you had a quiet strength that would surprise people someday." As I closed the door behind my last guest and looked around my small but comfortable apartment, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The laundry room episode, painful as it was, had become the catalyst for growth I might have postponed indefinitely otherwise. Being displaced from my physical space had ultimately led me to claim a deeper, more significant territory: my independence, my voice, and my sense of self-worth. The story wasn't over, of course. Ryan's recovery would have its ups and downs. My relationship with Dad would continue to evolve. My teaching career was just beginning, with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But the foundation I now stood on was solid, built by my own hands through difficult choices and brave actions. I no longer needed anyone else's permission to take up space in the world. I had claimed that right for myself, and no one could ever relegate me to the laundry room of life again. So what about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who didn't value your space or needs? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need encouragement to set their own boundaries. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to take up space in your own life.